Since the draft's gone, time to grade all the draft picks. There's no moving on. Yeah, should have got a guard since the draft's gone. It's the annual exercise that Nick Caserio calls the most ridiculous concept. It is grading a draft. We're going to grade the Houston Texans 2025 draft. 9 new players via the draft. That 9-player draft class will have a final grade at the end. Each player is going to get their own grade as well. Now, I want to lay out how I go about grading a player, grading a draft class. It's not just did I like it, did I not like it, though there is a strong bit of did I feel like that was good value for the player? Did I like that player's makeup, what that player brings to the table? How did professional draft evaluators evaluate that player? What were the other options? And is there a scenario where that player contributes significantly, maybe a starter, or somewhat a key backup in the 2025 season? Worth noting, a year ago, I gave this Texans draft class with Kamari Lassiter, Kalen Bullock, and Blake Fisher, and Cade Stover. Gave them a B, and I felt like that was pretty good, and it ended up being probably a little bit better than that when you think about how good Lassiter and Bullock were. And part of my hesitancy with that draft class last year was I didn't see Blake Fisher's role on the offensive line. Put a feather in that one or put a pin in that one. You'll hear that again here in a few minutes. But ultimately, each player gets a grade. The overall class gets a grade. And why they get those grades, well, that's what you're here for. Let's start with the first draft pick the Texans made, Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver from Iowa State. I really liked Higgins. I'd have been probably okay if they'd taken him at 25, though the additional draft capital from trading back was certainly useful. I like Higgins. He was super productive for Iowa State in his 2 seasons there. He's a consistent player through his 4 years of college football, Eastern Kentucky, and then Iowa State. You have a reliable wide receiver that doesn't drop the football, can go up and make plays, and is in tune with how important it is to be a different and more dangerous player in the red zone. Time and time again throughout the course of the process, Jaden Higgins has talked about, I want to be a target. I want to be a guy that scores points for the team. I want to be a guy that you can rely on in the red zone. The game changes in the red zone. Bobby Slowick didn't understand that. That's why the Texans were horrific in the red zone last year. Hopefully Nick Caley does, and by understanding that the red zone game changes, hopefully you can find Jaden Higgins a couple of times. It's a big target, a reliable target for CJ Stroud on the outside, but don't sleep on Higgins. He could play on the inside a little bit as well. He gets an A grade from me just because I felt like he was one of the best players available when they selected him. There's not a couple of other players that I would have wanted instead of him at the wide receiver position or at another position. So Higgins gets an A to start off this draft class grade. Coming up next, Arante Ursery. Now, Ursery was acquired via the 48th overall pick. They moved up from 58 to 48 to get Arante Ursery using the 99th overall pick, and that was pretty fair value for that trade up. If you're going to have a team drop 10 spots and maybe really like the player that is on the board at that moment, you've got to compensate them pretty well. The Texans came up for the Minnesota tackle, and well, I don't get it in 2025. I understand all of it in 2026 and beyond. This guy is a big athletic human being. I like the phrase when draftniks call those guys big athletes, big physical, powerful athletes, like when they call them dancing bears. I like to imagine a bear out there at left tackle. That could be the case for Arante Ursery. He could be out there at left tackle in 2026 and beyond, locking down the blind side for CJ Stroud and this Houston Texans offense. What's he doing in 2025, though? What's he doing this upcoming season? I get it from a perspective down the road. I understand it from 2026 and beyond. I just don't totally get it here in 2025. The Houston Texans have less impressive options on the interior than they do on the outside. I can't imagine Ursery is going to be as good as Cam Robinson is at left tackle or as Blake Fisher is at right tackle in the early part of this season. Robinson, no Iron Man, but he does play a lot of games, hasn't missed a ton of time in his tenure, and Ursery basically has only played left tackle at Minnesota. A handful of snaps here or there at some other spots, but he's a left tackle, and the Texans have a 2025 left tackle, so I don't quite see the vision in 2025, but I see it in 2026 and beyond, obviously at left tackle. However, I'll put this caveat out there. Ursery's getting a C+ from me. This will move to a B+ if he indeed can play guard in 2025. If Ursery is a type of player that could help the Houston Texans on the interior in 2025 and bump out to the exterior in 2026 and beyond, this moves a full letter grade up, and I'll be very on board and thumbs up with this decision. I just don't know that I totally believe it, though a lot of draft prognosticators after the draft have mentioned they believe Ursery can play inside. Nick Caserio was non-committal when he was asked about it, so C+ for right now. If he plays guard in 2025, I reserve the right to retroactively improve this to a B+. A moment here for my friends at The Perfect Jean. I used to have trouble finding jeans. I had to find them that fit right. They're comfortable, stretchy enough that I don't rip the seat out when I try to get into my truck, that are breathable, that I can wear them when it's not cold weather outside. I finally found it with The Perfect Jean. I was skeptical. The Perfect Jean, that sounds like a little much. I tried them out. I loved them immediately. You're going to feel the same way. Free shipping, free return, so it's easy to get exactly the style and size that you want. Tons of color options, tons of different styles, and it's The Perfect Jean. It's not just a name, it's the lifestyle. It's for real, and you're getting 15% off when you use my link in the description down below. They're the perfect jeans for me. They can be the perfect jeans for you. So visit my friends at The Perfect Jean. Jaylen Null, Jaden Higgins' teammate, man, what a steal he is for the Houston Texans. A player that probably would have been okay to pick at 34 overall. The Texans get him at 79th overall in the third round. And man, I just love the potential of Null being able to kind of ease into the NFL level. He can use his skills and abilities when you put him on the field right away. Speedy, quick releases, making guys miss. There's just some fine tuning to his game that's going to require a little bit of time at the next level. And the fact that you've got Nico Collins and Christian Kirk and now Jaden Higgins, you have the ability to ease Null into his role. He gets comped to Christian Kirk quite a bit. Well, you've got Christian Kirk on the team. Attach those two at the hip, have them spend a lot of time together. And if the Texans decide to move on from Christian Kirk after one season, you've got the hopeful next Christian Kirk, or maybe something even better, ready to go. I liked the idea of getting two wide receivers in this draft. I didn't even think about just using two of those early picks on wide receiver and really solidifying a pass catching situation for the Texans this upcoming season, with Collins and Kirk and Higgins and Null as sort of that top four for the team. That's a really exciting one. And then going forward for the next two seasons, maybe more if Nico Collins gets another contract extension, you got Collins, Higgins, and Null all together. An opportunity for CJ Stroud to really build a base with those guys over the next few seasons. It's an exciting draft pick. It was an exciting way for the board to fall on the Texans, staying true to their best player available conversation. They get Null, and I really like that pick. He gets an A as well, just like his teammate. Are they cheating off each other's papers? I hope not, but they both get an A. Jaylen Smith, the cornerback from USC. Interesting player here. Most viewed him as a day 3 selection, late day 3 selection amongst draft prognosticators. However, Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network, one of my favorites, had him as about the 114th player. He went 97th overall. That's not that big of a jump. I just don't see how a third round pick should be used on a player that is clearly going to be a backup and has no avenue to starting for the team. Obviously, Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter are on the outside, and then Jalen Petrie is your nickel / slot cornerback. So how are you going to use Smith? He's going to be a backup. He's going to be a key reserve. He's going to be a special teamer. I get it. I understand it. He's got inside-outside versatility. So I like that to an extent. I just don't know that you should use a third-round pick on a guy that can't start unless there's injuries. Now, cornerback, a place where the Texans needed some depth, and certainly nickel cornerback behind Petrie, they need some players that could play that position, and Smith does that. I just wish maybe a little bit later the investment came, maybe a move back from that. Plus, the Texans squandered a 5th-round pick in the move up there. I know they ended up getting a 6th-round pick, which ironically they used on another DB later on in the draft, but they squandered a 5th-round pick in a few spot move up after they'd already moved back. That hurts the grade for Smith as well. We're going C- for the DB out of USC. Smith's teammate Woody Marks next up for the Texans. They traded a future 3rd-round pick to jump into the 4th round of this draft and get Woody Marks. And I like Woody Marks. He's one of the better receiving backs in this draft, and I liked his effort and what he put together from a pass blocking standpoint. There's maybe some fine-tuning to that, but this is a guy that you could trust out there on 3rd downs with CJ Stroud and these wide receivers, and you can get the ball to him and he can make something happen. He's not a nothing in the run game, but he's certainly not a guy that you could turn the offense over to if, say, Joe Mixon wasn't available. Now, Joe Mixon should be available in 2025, but part of my criticism of the Marks pick is the cost to go and get him, as well as the fact that there were other running backs on the board that could have been the number 1 running back if Mixon was not available. I don't feel that way about Woody Marks. I don't feel like you could just turn the offense over to him and make him RB2 if Joe Mixon's not available. He's a guy that you put in there in spots, not that you can hand the running back 1 role to if your usual running back 1 isn't available. That's probably my biggest criticism of Woody Marks. Other than that, I really like him. I liked his mentality. I liked the way that he talked about playing football. I liked what he brings to the table as a receiver. There's some potential to grow as a pass blocker and continue to be an effective 3rd down weapon. I just wonder if the Texans would have been better served getting someone closer to RB1 than closer to RB3 / 3rd down running back like they did with Woody Marks. This one gets a C+ from me for Woody Marks. Penn State safety Jaylen Reed slid down the board according to a lot of draft prognosticators, and this one turned out to be a pretty good value. In fact, if you just switched Reed and Smith, you'd probably have approximate value on those guys closer to what a lot of people thought. But here's what I like about Reed. This is a guy that needs some fine-tuning to his game. He needs some improvement to some of the non-physical aspects of playing safety. He's got to take better angles. He's got to learn how to cover a little bit, anticipate a little bit more, change speeds. You can't just be a heat-seeking missile all the time. You got to be able to adjust to the job that is in front of you, and the tackling has got to get a little bit better. Well, good news for Reed. He's not being forced to start right away. He's not being forced to go out there and cover right away. He can come in and be an effective blitzer right away, be a guy that's physical in the run game, and you don't have to start this player because you've got options at safety for the next couple of seasons. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's under contract for this season and next. Obviously, Kalen Bullock is under contract. And if this guy turns into a reliable 3rd safety / eventual starter after C.J. Gardner-Johnson is gone, that turns into a really nice draft pick. I liked Reed's persona. I liked how much he knew about the Houston Texans in the draft process. I liked how much Reed wanted to be on the Houston Texans, even telling the story to the point where he chased down a coach in the hallway and said, I want to be on the Houston Texans. I love that. I love what he did at Penn State. I love the physical tools. I love that he is a no-nonsense pain bringer from the safety spot. And I love that he's got a couple of years to grow into his role and help out this defense. Oh, by the way, this is the type of guy that will be a special teams demon from day one. B+ for Jaylen Reed, the safety out of Penn State. Quarterback Graham Mertz, he gets an F from me. This is a simple explanation. The Houston Texans have 3 quarterbacks on the roster already. Davis Mills is going to be the backup quarterback this upcoming season unless the Texans get a fantastic trade offer and want to trade him away. Even then, they've got Kedon Slovis in the building. Already been here for a while, already been in the NFL, already familiar with where everything goes and teammates and so on and so forth. What'd you need another quarterback for? Yeah, maybe a long-term backup option for Davis Mills. Use an undrafted free agency spot on a guy like that. And here's the thing with Mertz. He's coming off of a knee injury. We don't even know if he's going to be available for off-season activities. The Texans only carried 2 quarterbacks on their roster last year. So if you got to keep him on the practice squad, you're going to have to cut him at some point. We don't even know when he's going to actually be on the field. 3 guards, 3 interior offensive linemen went off the board after Mertz was drafted. Okay? All 3 of those players would have been a more worthwhile investment than drafting a quarterback. It doesn't make any sense. There's not an immediate use for him. There's not an immediate need for him. There's not even a soon-to-be need for him that you couldn't have filled another way. This should have been an interior offensive lineman or just an offensive lineman in general. This shouldn't have been a quarterback. This gets an F from me. Keonte Hamilton, defensive tackle out of Rutgers. Man, I kind of like the more I read about Hamilton, the more I understand his history and think about what he could bring to the table at defensive tackle. Get a little excited about Hamilton. He's a former wrestler, and I say wrestler in a big-time way. You know, some of these guys wrestled in high school as a way to kind of stay in shape in the offseason of football, but Hamilton's a big-time wrestler, winning championships, getting scholarships for wrestling. Well, after a little bit of wrestling at Rutgers, he decided to focus solely on football, and it paid off in a big way this past season. His best season playing football at Rutgers this past year, an honorable mention all Big Ten with this past season. There's a little bit of juice to his game, and you could kind of see where with some fine-tuning and a little bit of opportunity, maybe Hamilton finds his way into the rotation at defensive tackle. Remember a few years ago when Kurt Heinisch made the team as an undrafted free agent? Hamilton certainly got an opportunity. And when you think about the defensive tackle room long-term, a lot of guys in their final year of the contract. So if Hamilton is able to play well enough, make the team, we know DeMeco Ryans loves to rotate those defensive linemen, loves to keep a lot of defensive linemen on the roster. Won't be easy, but if Hamilton does make the roster, it's a guy that could maybe cement one of those defensive tackle spots on the depth chart for a couple of seasons as guys are set to depart from defensive tackle after this upcoming season. He's got a long road. There's an opportunity there for him, though. And as a former high school wrestler myself, I got a soft spot in my heart for those wrestlers and how tough they are. And God, he's tougher than I ever could have imagined being if he was a champion at a couple of different levels. So Hamilton, he gets a B from me. It's a worthwhile late round flyer. Tight end Luke Lachey from Iowa. This is what a late round flyer is supposed to look like. This is what you're supposed to use a late round draft pick on, a player like Luke Lachey, not a quarterback that you can't put on the field. Lachey was awesome in 2022 for the Hawkeyes. He was incredible. As I talked to people who are big Iowa fans, cover Iowa, they thought his ceiling at the conclusion of the 2022 college football season, they thought his ceiling was going to be higher than Sam Laporta's. Yeah, that Sam Laporta that stars for the Detroit Lions at tight end. Right? Iowa folks thought that Lachey was going to have a higher ceiling than Laporta. And then he only played 15 games in the past 2 seasons because of injury, got hobbled a little bit. They didn't throw him the ball because Iowa, it runs an archaic, awful to watch offense, couldn't get the ball out there to him. All of it was short dump off stuff. But when you look at Lachey, you think about the athletic profile, the history of Iowa tight ends, this guy, he comes in here, he blocks well enough to make the team. He does a lot of the dirty work in the blocking situations that you ask out of tight ends. And then you get, I don't know, competent quarterback play to get him the ball, maybe not 3 yards in front of the line of scrimmage like Iowa typically did. Maybe you let him get out there and actually run some routes and get the ball to him. You might see a little something from Lachey. Again, perfect late round dart throw. You've got options at the position already. You've got solid options at the position already. Cade Stover, Dalton Schultz, hopefully Brevin Jordan, healthy. So this dart throw, if it doesn't work out, late 7th round pick, it doesn't matter that much. If it does, you're sitting here a couple of years from now wondering just how exactly did that Iowa tight end make it all the way down to the back end and final little bit of the 2025 NFL draft. Lachey, as the late round dart throw, gets an A for me. Now, those first 4 rounds, they're graded with a little bit more weight than the latter rounds. It's easy to sit here and parse words over late round picks. I'm not going to sit here and really lose my mind about a quarterback getting drafted, though one of those offensive linemen would have been nice. But that doesn't weigh too heavily in the grade. Overall, for me, this draft class, go with a B-. It's more depth focused than potential starter focused in 2025. And the Houston Texans need to be good in 2025. They need to go further than they did the previous season. And I don't know that exactly this draft class is going to be the one to take them there. It may be just the evolution and improvement of the players they already had on the team that will take the Texans to the next level. These players sort of fill out the depth. I will say, with all the conversations about depth this past offseason from DeMeco Ryans, they did go out there and significantly add to the depth of this team this offseason, especially over on defense. Maybe not exactly on all the spots on offense that we were thinking. They certainly are a deeper team with this draft class if these players are able to stick on the roster and help you out in 2025. My overall grade for the draft class, we're going with a B- on this one with a little asterisk next to it. Because if Arante Ursery goes and ends up playing guard for this team, that bumps his grade up, and I would bump this whole draft class up to an A- if Ursery ended up playing guard. That's where I felt like the Texans needed to invest. That's not where the Texans invested. But if we found out that Ursery was going to go help out on the interior in 2025, bump that grade up. Until then, it's a B- for me. This is a draft class that on the high end at the top, if it pays off, it may not pay off as much in 2025, but it should pay off in 2026 and beyond. What's your draft grade? Let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to visit our friends over at The Perfect Gene. They helped me find the perfect pair of jeans. They can help you find the perfect pair for you. The Perfect Gene, link in the description down below. It's going to get you 15% off your first order. And remember, free shipping and free returns. Try out a bunch of different jeans. Find out if you like them. I know you're going to love them. They're perfect for you. They're perfect for me. They're the perfect gene. Appreciate you watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you didn't think I was too stiff with the red pen here on the Texans. And I can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.